up with faith. And faith can be seen in two frames. It could be seen in the spiritual aspect within, and it can also be seen in the religious aspect. So I want to take a step back and I want to look at faith through the spiritual aspect. Faith is having the assurance of things hoped for and the conviction of things not yet seen. How did your faith empower you to empower others through your journey? And that's the question for you both.
Sure, wow. I just have to say, it's so lovely to be sitting next to this woman. I mean, so many people often are like, which story stood out to you the most? And I'm like, I couldn't possibly pick. And then I'm like, Molly Barker. Anyway, so I'm thrilled. I guess for me, there's often like an inner voice when something like this comes to me, like, maybe I should take a road trip across America. And you're like, no, that's crazy. And then there's like a tiny voice within that's like, but maybe that could be cool. And like I let it marinate in my brain, and then my brain kind of goes crazy assessing it and planning for it and thinking about it, and then it's almost like I'm already doing it, you know. So for me, faith is, I guess, a belief in myself that I'm capable of something, even if I haven't done that before. Just knowing that I'll bring people on the team, I'll hire people, I'll figure it out, I'll do research, I'll take classes, like I'll do whatever I have to do to figure out that big puzzle, that big problem to solve. And that's served me quite well. Like usually if I'm thinking about doing something, I've kind of already decided that I'm doing it. That's pretty much how every film goes for me. It's like, and if it's enough of an inkling to me, I'm gonna go for it. And I'm grateful for that. I know not everyone has that quality, and I think it's a little bit of a crazy quality perhaps, but and then when I hear that voice again the next time, I'm only more emboldened to say yes to it because of how it went the last time. So after making the Empowerment Project, the next film that came around, which we're showing tomorrow night, Losing Sight of Shore, when that came up, it was like, oh, well, I can obviously figure this out if I did that. So you kind of stand on your own shoulders. That's kind of how I assess it.
That makes sense. And Molly, for you, how does that feel?
So I notice in myself that when I'm in these periods of discomfort and doubt, that is not the time for me to act on something. I just have to sort of sit with the discomfort, because inevitably I have faith that the answer will come. And I remember being y'all's age and having to make really hard decisions about what I'm going to do with my life and all that sort of thing. And it was just terrible, like the urgency of that, like I have to know now, you know? And I went ahead and did things, but I'll tell you, sitting in the discomfort of not knowing has been being able to do that has been the greatest gift for me, because I'm telling you, the answer comes, especially if I take the time to be quiet and turn off, all the things. The answers tend to come like when I'm on a run or during times of meditation, when I'm kind of in that space where I can hear something other than the noise of the world.
That's beautiful. And so that leads me into my next question, and this is for you, Sarah. In the film, you actually had a moment when you all were with the professional athlete, and you had one of your crew members kind of get emotional. And she was uplifting, but also talking down on herself at the same time, and you told her to pause, right? Reflect. Yes, this may not be something that you're continuing to do on a daily basis, but just know that you're still capable. Why did you take the moment to allow her to pause and reflect on the moment that she was in when she felt disparity, right?
Yeah, Ashley, she's just such an incredible person. I'm so grateful that she took this journey with us. I think we were all constantly reminding each other, like, this is really special, like this whole thing that we're doing. We know this isn't normal life, to get in a minivan and go take this road trip. Like, we don't know if we'll ever be able to do this again in any form. So I think it wasn't just me saying things like that. We were all saying versions of that to each other throughout the road trip when things got hard or we got tired, which of course we did, we make it seem like it was all sunshine and rainbows, and it mostly was, but of course there were moments of contention too. And we were good at saying, like, hey, let's, take a minute, take a beat. This is really cool what we're doing. Like, let's enjoy ourselves. Let's be in the moment. Let's be present. And I don't know, there's nothing harder than for me to listen to another woman put herself down. And so I think in that moment, what I can remember is just Ashley is just such a bright, shining light in this world. She still is to me. So it just really hurt to hear her say anything negative about her body, her self-image, and when we were on this extremely empowering adventure, you know, like I just wanted her to feel better and to recognize that we're all a journey, you know, we're all in process. Even with fitness, you know, like if you want to lose weight, okay, that's going to take time. It's going to take dedication, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't start or that you should feel bad that you didn't start yesterday, you know.
Definitely. And Molly, this is a question for you. You are the founder of a national nonprofit organization called Girls on the Run. Keyword run. Typically, if we associate run in life, it's running away. Seldomly do we run to a lot of things and opportunities. And you talk about being in your youth and in your young adult life, having that adversity, and you wanted to run. What made you stop?
Is that working? Yeah. Interesting that running for me was always a running too. Even as a kid, for those of you that are into athletics, or you find that space where you forget who you are. You forget yourself. It might be art. It could be. There's anything. Like the mathematician. I loved her because she kind of forgot who she was. Right? She just digs math. I'm like, who does that? But running for me, and so that was actually the place where I was most myself. So throughout, running has been more of a metaphor to the essence of me, and all the other things were outward versions of myself. So it isn't a surprise that was why I started the program, to give girls and the chance to run toward the bigness of who they are.
And so both of you, in your own respect, have been able to accomplish a portion of that dream, right? We're still in conquest of achieving that, but you've got the sense of the dream. I want to ask each of you separately about the process. A lot of times, like even for our students and our youth, we can hear someone say like, yeah, I'm a billionaire, and I just woke up one day and boom, it happened. And then we're like, okay, then how did it happen? People say that? Right. Like, how did it happen, though? Like, what was the point when you were at your difficulty and you were in your adverse moment? Like, how did you overcome? How did you do that? So in your process, independent film, documentary series, now having a number of them under your belt, like, how did that process start? What did it look like?
Yeah, so usually it starts with an idea, a concept. You write it down in some form, whether it's like you make a one sheet or a treatment, or you even just write a log line, like a one-sentence description of what it is. And then it already has taken a life. It's already there on the page. Like, that's the beginning. It's like actually writing it down or telling someone, recording something, and maybe you do your first interview or you take your first image. My most recent film, it's a narrative film. It started with a visual for me, and I was like, how do I express that cinematically? So some spark, and then it's what are those first actionable steps to make that film happen? And I'll, speak specifically about film. You always need to raise some amount of money to make it. So how are you going to do that? You might need to write more about it or get people on board, whether they've agreed to be interviewed, or you do a crowdfunding campaign. And if you want to learn more about fundraising, tomorrow at noon, we're doing a deep dive into how to raise money for your creative projects with me. So please join us. So I did a Kickstarter campaign for the Empowerment Project, or I'm applying for grants or seeking out investment or private donors, whatever I have to do to raise the money. I'm making a budget. Okay, how much is it going to cost? What's the scope of the project? How am I going to be traveling for a month like this, or traveling for 9 months, or not traveling at all? Like, what is the scope of the project? And then you're in pre-production. So where are we going to go? Who are we going to interview? Where are we going to sleep? What are we going to eat? All of the logistics of the shoot. Yes, I'm a director, but I'm also very much a hands-on producer. So producer is the person that's really making everything happen logistically. They're often the unsung heroes of independent film. Release forms, the legal side, accounting, a lot of the logistical elements that are still very creative, but not, the director kind of gets all the credit for being the creative, but every position on a film is creative. Then you're in production. So for us, this was a month on the road. That was our production. For the film you hopefully will join us for tomorrow, it was 9 months of production. Then you're in editing, figuring out, okay, like I told the class earlier today, when we got back from the Empowerment Project, October 3rd, 2013, I'll never forget, I'm standing there in my office with several hard drives of footage, including Molly's incredible interview, and I'm like, great, now what? Like, how do I translate all of this footage, hundreds of hours of footage from our road trip, into a movie? Will people ever feel what I felt? I had this tremendous, enlightening, wonderful experience on the road with these 4 women. Great. But is that going to be a movie that anyone ever wants to watch? That's the art of editing. And so whittling down all this footage into an actual story with pacing and with emotion and with an arc, and figuring out, reading through Molly's transcript, we must have interviewed her for over an hour. So what are you taking from an hour to be, that's probably 4 or 5 minutes? What are the biggest pieces that Molly shared that we want to share with the audience? And then you get into marketing and distribution. There's so many phases of it. I am someone who really likes the entire process. Not everyone likes the entire process. I'm not saying I like fundraising, but it's like a necessary part of it to get your dream off the ground. So yeah, for me, it's this multifaceted experience. But once you've made one film and gone through that fire and come out the other side and been able to share your film with an audience and get that reaction and see it reflected in other people, I mean, forget it. For me, that's the driver. So every film after this has been just like, okay, I know what I'm doing in some form, and how do I get to that place where I can share it with people? And now in my career, this is 10 years later, I really embrace that the making of the film is the gift. So yes, of course, I love sharing it with an audience. I am overwhelmed with gratitude to be here with you 10 years after making this film and sharing it. I love that. But I really love making things. I love being on set. I love working with collaborators and figuring out the sound and the edit and the color and what lens we're going to use, what question I'm going to ask, all of it. I absolutely love the making of the thing is the gift. And I'm trying to stay in that space now. So everything after that is just gravy.
I love that. And Molly, for you, it's like a testament of your actual strength, right? And through that adversity, you were still able to obtain your master's, enter into the Ironman triathlon, and still continue the passion of running. How did your process start, and what did it look like for you?
So I do need to be clear that during the Ironman days, I was not drinking. So I was what was called a dry drunk, meaning I wasn't like healing, I was just not drinking, right? So I was able to do those athletic events. I was still very unhappy, however. So yeah, it's the same thing. So like you have this idea, right? It's inside of your brain and it's all alone in there. It's only yours. No one knows about it. And then it begins, for me, it began to take shape visually. And I thought, what would a program look like? What would a child that came into the program look like? And what would she be like when she left? That was what I was visioning first, was that. And then, so for me, the next most important phase was to share that idea with one trusted person, because that's where the mistakes started coming out. So I could hear myself speak it into life, right? And then after I began to speak about it, it was like a dust bunny, a dust ball. It started to gather momentum, right? And then it became bigger and bigger, and then suddenly now I've got an idea. And I unlike you, Sarah, I started Girls on the Run with no money because I didn't have a big production. So I just went to a school and I said, I'd like to do this program. And they said yes. So I did it. And I was waiting tables. I was catering. I was doing all kinds of odd jobs to make sure this program could fly. And it wasn't until about 3 or 4 years in that I actually got a paycheck. So I guess I just want to, let you know that the beginning was not easy. Who you see sitting here very comfortable and not having to think too hard about income, it wasn't always like that. And but I was so committed. Like I knew that it was going to be successful. I just felt it in my being that it would, because it was changing people's lives, including my own. I knew that it was touching people. And like I said in the film, anything that comes from a place of such goodness, it just cannot fail. It can't fail. Yeah.
Thank you. That's powerful. And so my next question for you both is, what does empowerment mean for the both of you? Starting with you, Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me now, empowerment is, to be able to continue to make films, to make a difference in the world through film. Like, I believe for me in my life, like, that's what I was born to do. Like, the power of cinema is so overwhelming and beautiful to me in any facet. I watch tons of other people's films, and I'm so inspired by the work they can do in the world, and how it can change hearts and minds and influence and inspire. And it's so powerful the way we reflect our experiences as human beings through cinema, through imagery, through television, through movies. And I want to be a part of that. I want to continue to be a part of that. And so to be able to have a growing body of work, I'm absolutely not done. I'm 36. I have so many more movies I want to make in my lifetime. They're going to be bigger and scarier and awesome in scope. It's not like horror scary, but like scary to get started. That's empowerment to me, to be able to continue down this path that I'm very much creating for myself. Like, this is my version of being a filmmaker, and it might be different than anyone else's. I'm very inspired by counterparts, certainly, feel jealousy or that I'm not, measuring up in some way to some peers. I certainly have feelings like that. We all do on social media, where you're like, so-and-so's killing it, and I'm not, but it's all such smoke and mirrors at the end of the day. So yeah, empowerment for me is continuing to be able to tell stories and not letting anything stand in the way. Of course, as my projects get bigger in scope, it will be harder to get them off the ground independently. I'll need other entities, production companies, distributors, financiers to say yes. But even the creation of an idea is very empowering, and believing that it's possible that the idea in your head could become a tangible film that you could share with people all over the world. Like, I know that's possible now, and I can't unsee that, which I think is really important. So yeah, simply put, just to make more movies that matter in the world.
That's beautiful. And Molly, for you, what does empowerment mean?
I want to be thoughtful on this. Our American culture is so focused on getting power from outside. That if I get this job, or if I succeed at this measured in their terms, if I look this way or behave this way, then I will succeed and have power as defined by this external system. And I have fallen into that trap on and off throughout my life. And as I'm now at 63, I'm recognizing that I would have been very satisfied, I'm feeling a little teary, if Girls on the Run had only affected 26 girls in my entire life. That would have been enough. That instead of measuring my power by the numbers of people that I reach, it's measuring it to the quality of the relationships and the connections that I have. And that's what empowerment feels to me, is how am I bringing the true essence of who I am to the space around me? And I think about it a lot, like with you now. I don't want to rush to an answer. I want to make sure that I'm thoughtful about my answer. And that is what empowerment feels like to me at this age. And it hasn't always been that way. So it's a good question. And, ask me again when I'm 80, and it might be just sitting on my butt somewhere and, like, doing nothing, which would be another form of empowerment, So, yeah, there's that.
Michelle Howard mentioned in her preview of the screening that there's going to come a day where we're all in a rocking chair with a blanket, a moment of reflection to look over the impact that we've had in our lives, right? And so I'm going to place you guys a few years ahead. You're sitting in that rocking chair with your blanket, and you're watching the world around you, and you're thinking back on your impact on society and the world. What are you telling yourself?
I just hope in that moment that I'm proud of myself and proud of the work that I put out into the world and proud of my children. I'm a mom. I have 2 kids, and I'm hoping that they're influenced and inspired by the work that I'm doing, but also the person I am at home when all of that is not around. When there's no camera, there's no lights, there's no actors, there's no documentary, none of it. It's just me and them, and I'm trying to wire their tiny brains in this moment to know that they're loved, just to know that I'm there for them and that they're loved. And I'm so excited to just witness their life That just feels like such a gift to just know that I'm going to witness their lives. Yeah, that's all. I don't know. I think that's all I can hope for, is just to be proud of the work that I put in the world, proud of the way that I've treated other people, that I've been kind, I hope, and that I've been a good mom and raised good humans that will grow up and move through the world in a kind way as well, and help influence and inspire others, even if it's one person. I don't mean it has to be millions of people. That's certainly not everyone's path. But yeah, it is fascinating how your goals change every, I hope, decade, maybe less, you know. I'm in my mid-30s now. I wonder how I'll feel when I'm 46, 56, 60, you know, going on. Should we all be so lucky to live that long and get in the rocking chair and have the blanket over our laps? And yeah, I think that way often. Like, you gotta fast forward to the end and think about, how do I want to reflect upon my life? What are the steps I can maybe take now to lead to that feeling, you know? Yeah.
Makes sense. And Molly?
I'm just laughing, y'all. I'm like looking at that woman that was up there, and I'm like, girl, what was up with your hair? That is like, who is that up there, you know, with the like long blonde hair and the silver and all that stuff. And I'm pretty sure that when I'm like sitting in the rocking chair, I'm going to be looking at myself right now and going, girl, what was up with whatever, you know? So I think that it's not a regret. It's like, life is sort of funny, you know, when you look at how you've lived and who you are. I mean, I'm sure y'all can look back at yourselves when you were like 13 and be like, what was up, you know? So I think I continually like to just look at myself, you know, and think, what was going on there? But then to also have compassion for that woman or that girl, you know, because we're always doing the best that we can. What you all don't know is that during the filming of that, I was going through one of the most critical, very upsetting times of my life. So I look at that image of myself, and I knew what was going on, but I still showed up, you know. But that we're all just doing the best that we can, you know. And if I know that I'm doing the best that I can, then I don't think regret's possible.
And so that leads me into, for a lot of women, I'm not going to generalize and say all of us, but for a lot of women, we have imposter syndrome. We think that we need to be one way, dress one way, act one way, speak one way. And again, it goes back to having that inability to see yourself having strength. And even when you're possessing that, right, and you're projecting that, and you're direct, and you're assertive, people still look at that in a negative light. How do you all continue in your empowerment journey to encourage young women to look within, even when the world is telling you, no, that's not a good look?
I mean, I feel like we are and we should continue to lead by example, just taking up space in whatever our industry is, whatever place we find ourselves in the world. Like, just your mere beautiful existence as a woman in that space is so important and valuable. It might not feel like it in the moment, but merely you being a leader in any form, you know, being kind, you know, taking up space, being assertive. And I have another film called Nevertheless, and in that film we say assertiveness is respectfully educating other people on how to treat you. And that feels like such a delicious way to explain that, rather than like aggressive, which we all very much connotate with like negativity or whatever. So I think just embracing that, like, by merely existing in your space, let's say you're in the STEM field or you're in a male-dominated field, it doesn't mean you have to be the CEO or the president to like actually move the needle in that industry. If you have those aspirations and you can be that leader and make that change from that point of view, wonderful, please do, we need you. But even if you don't rise in the ranks in that way, just taking up space in that industry and being your authentic self, whether you express yourself in a feminine way or not. It's not about femininity or masculinity, it's just being you and showing us what that looks like, being a woman in 2023 in chemistry, in STEM, in film, in whatever fill-in-the-blank industry that we need you in. We need your representation, because when we turn on our TVs, we're not seeing you. We're not seeing you represented in all of your beauty and complexity and flaws. You know, we don't get enough stories about complex, flawed, actual human women. That's what I'm trying to do, is reflect more of that in our world. So I wouldn't even make a big, broad statement. I think so many of us have imposter syndrome. Don't forget that everybody is just doing the best they can, and is figuring things out as they go. I think we tend, especially at your age, think of adults as like, oh, they've got it figured out. No, they don't. No, we don't. None of us up here really know. We're doing the best that we can with the information that we have. I've made some films now. I would like to make more, but I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly recalibrating my definition of success and how I want to move through the world. So I would just say don't fall in the trap of thinking that everyone older than you has it all figured out. I think we learned that in the pandemic, that nobody knows what's going on, and we're all just trying to, do the best that we can. So anyway, I would just encourage any woman that feels imposter syndrome to just embrace that your mere existence in that space is so powerful, and we need you. We need you there so that the girls behind you coming up see you, whether it's on TV or in an interview, but more importantly, in that job. Then they'll think that's possible for me as well. And that's how we blaze a trail for more generations. And that's how we change the numbers. You saw those statistics. They're from 10 years ago, but they're pretty abysmal. It's how do we get more women in positions of leadership? We have to be each other's role models, truly.
That's powerful. And Molly, in your empowerment journey, how is that?
I did not feel imposter syndrome when I was doing the thing that I loved, because it wasn't I wasn't having to measure who I was. Like when I'm with the kids or when I'm up here, I'm not thinking, am I qualified to be here, because I'm just being myself, It was when I was in circles where other people might have measured success by things that I don't measure it by. So if I was attending, say, a business meeting or something, and they were talking about Excel spreadsheets, and the assumption was that because I had a large, business that was growing, that I should somehow be an expert on this, which I wasn't. So I think, I'm not sure if that makes sense. It's when I think too hard that I start to feel unqualified. I think if I'm doing the thing that I really love, I don't think that I did feel it, actually. I'm not sure if that's probably not helpful at all. I thought I was pretty awesome, actually. I'm doing the thing I'm supposed to do, and there was no confusion about that. Now, if you put me into a banking setting, that would really be imposter syndrome, because I wouldn't know what I was doing. So, anyway, I'm done.
And we're going to cue that. So I would say now that you're understanding who you are. You can define that when someone asks you, Sarah, who you are. Molly, who are you? You can give them a gist of that, right? But it's still an ongoing process in which you learn. And that ongoing process requires you to be confident in most settings, but also trustworthy in others. You trusted 4 other women to take on this project with you. You entrusted that one soul to listen to you, to hear you out as you're formulating that dream. When you look out into the youth and you're inspiring and motivating them on a daily basis, how do you get them to come and be rooted in the ideals of understanding that trust and confidence have to be derivatives that drive you forward?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I would think, somebody paid me a beautiful compliment once, which was after this woman had seen a few of my films. She said, I feel like if I'm watching a Sarah Moshman film, I trust that I'm going to be inspired, that I'm going to be empowered, that I'm going to learn something. Like, she was saying all this beautiful stuff about like a through line in my work, and that was such a beautiful compliment to me, because it was like that I've built up the audience's trust. Like, I'm not going to throw you off, I'm not going to scare you, not that that's bad always, but like, you know what you're in for with a film of mine. It's going to feel something like this. And that was just, nobody had ever articulated that to me before, and that was really powerful to hear. I hope that as a filmmaker, the audience, when they see my name or they heard vaguely about me and my work, they know they can trust that I'm going to take them on a journey, and they're hopefully going to learn something and feel good afterwards, feel inspired, feel empowered, feel like they can communicate what they felt to others. They're going to feel something, and that's what more could I hope for, so that I hope that I am building a body of work that does that, and that I'm creating trust. I think every filmmaker needs to build trust with their audience. Like, if you're going to watch a film of mine, whoever you are, that you can trust me, that I'm going to take you on a journey, and it's going to make sense, and it's going to be interesting, and you're going to be entertained, but also you're going to feel good watching it. So that's my way, I guess, of communicating that feeling to anyone.
Definitely. And for Molly, for you, you're dealing with youth. That's primal age area. So for you, how do you bring those young girls in and root them in the idea of this is how confidence looks, right? It's imperfect. It's flawed, right? It's indifferent sometimes. How do you root them into understanding that and trust?
So something I believe firmly in, and I experience this with you as the interviewer, right, is that it is not my role to fix, save, or rescue anyone. They are perfect in whatever it is that they're experiencing. And it is my role, the word for compassion, to suffer with. It is my role to sit with someone and allow them to experience the journey of their own life without me defining it or labeling it for them. And that's what Girls on the Run really is. It's lessons with a structure, but it's allowing each individual to experience that lesson in her own language, through her own lens, through her own essence. And I'm not at all there to define that for her. And that's, to me, what builds trust as a parent to two grown kids. I mean, it's really important to me that people, when they're sitting down with me, they know that I'm not going to correct them or judge them. I'm just going to hold this space with you. And when you ask me for advice is when I will offer it, but I'm not going to do that other than that, because you are perfect even in the struggle that you're going through. There's nothing to fix there, if that makes sense. And just to congratulate you, that's what I felt like when you were interviewing me, or I couldn't have gone there, right? Yeah. And yeah.
I love that. And so my final question before we open the floor for questions for you both is the experience with the Empowerment Project. How was it being the producer, the director, and then sharing a journey with 4 other women, and then being engrossed and embedded into the lives of so many women who go unheard of, right? How was that process for you?
Wonderful. It's funny, the Empowerment Project has had multiple lives in the last 10 years, so it's the making of it is one part of it, which was such a beautiful experience, being with Molly in person, being with these women in person, in their homes, in their workplaces, with their families. It just felt like such a gift to be invited. That's what I love about documentary filmmaking in general. I find myself in the craziest, coolest places, traveling all over the world, meeting people, just being in such sacred spaces that other people would never be invited into, but because I know how to use a camera and I interview people, I'm suddenly just thrust into this new world, and I love that about it. It's just so, it's not lost on me that it's I was invited into Molly's home to hear this very personal story. It's wow, me, us, why? It's such a gift. And so the making of the film was such a joy, but then the sharing of the film over the last 9 years has been just the best journey of all. The abridged version is we worked with an incredible distributor called IndieFlix, and with their help, we've been screening the Empowerment Project in schools, groups, organizations, corporations all over the world. We stopped counting because we've screened this film over 1,000 times. It's just been so extraordinary to share this film with audiences as small as 5 people in a yoga studio and all the way up to 16,000 people at We Day, California in 2015. We've worked with brands like Nordstrom and American Girl and Charles Schwab and Microsoft. We've done 2 national tours. We were on Good Morning America. These are all outward things that sound awesome and are, but the best moments are moments like when we were in Seattle and a 16-year-old girl came up to Dana and I, Dana the producer, and she said, I didn't know that women could be astronauts. And now after seeing the Empowerment Project, I think I want to be an astronaut. And we were oh my God. We were just that's why we made the movie. Both of us were just a puddle, because that's exactly it. Even if we had never shown the film to one more person, we did it. Just like Molly was saying, it's about the one person. And that experience has stuck with me because that's what it's about, representation. That we weren't hearing stories like Dr. Sandy Magnus, like Michelle Howard, like all these incredible women. And it has an impact. If you can see it, you can be it. And that literally happened. The 16-year-old girl, I don't know if she's ever going to be an astronaut. It doesn't really matter. But she knows she can. She knows it's possible. So that has just been such an extraordinary joy. This film has exceeded truly all of my wildest expectations of what a film can do. And this film was made for so little money, straight from the heart. It was like the little engine that could. Nobody would have thought it would do all that it did. And that's what's so wonderful about it, is it just was driven by heart and passion and, determination to push it out to the world. And then a film really takes on a life of its own. That's what's really cool about it. It really grows up, moves out, and is like, let me tell you who I need to be in the world. And you're like, go ahead. So, this film, I'm shocked that it's been 10 years since we filmed it this fall. In some ways, it feels as relevant as ever. In some ways, it does feel like it's frozen in time. But I think a lot of the messages of the film are truly timeless, and I'm just so grateful to still be standing next to it. Like, what a joy.
Most definitely. And then Molly, for you to be in that film, I'm pretty sure multiple days you have time to stop, pause, and reflect on your life and your decisions that you've made, influencing a number of youthful women. So being a part of this film and having your story embedded and then screened for everyone to see now, right? How does that make you feel?
Do you want to know the truth? I am going to just tell you the truth. I remembered what I was going through during that film. And I am right now in front of you being very hard, I'm being brutally honest, with my appearance in that film. Because I can see in my body language that I was under a great deal of stress. And so there's a part of me that wants to say, oh no, wait a minute, I wasn't on my game, right? I wasn't on my best game in that video. I was talking too fast, but no one in the world, no one knows that. So in knowing that the story has been told, I'm very happy about it, but I just feel some form of relief in being able to tell you all. See, so we never stop that sort of, whatever that is, it's a constant kind of wanting to make sure that you accept me, and also being okay with who I am. I'm not sure if that makes sense.
Makes sense.
But that's at this moment what I'm experiencing with that film. I do love that it got out all over the place, though, because it did help grow Girls on the Run several, yeah. So that's lovely, too. Yeah.
It's worth mentioning that before the Empowerment Project, Dana and I made a short documentary called Growing Up Strong Girls on the Run, and Molly and I together won an Emmy Award for that film. So by the time, but thank you. So it's funny, when we were thinking about who should we interview for the Empowerment Project, Molly was number one on the list. We were just like, Molly, and then who else? It was like, number one will be Molly Barker. And then, so we interviewed you in September 2013, and then we won the Emmy for the short documentary in November 2013. So I saw her twice that year, and I haven't seen her since. So that's wild. It's cool. Life is crazy like that. Very cyclical.
Exactly. That's a beautiful reunion. And powerful stories, powerful impact, and continuing the journey to empower. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of strength, and it takes times, even when you're not feeling courageous, to be courageous for that next person. So at this time, we're going to open the floor for any questions that you all may have. Yes.
In those very brief moments that you may have found yourself feeling a little bit despair, how did you empower yourself?
I would say, for me, once we raised the money for the journey, that was the big first hurdle, right? And then I felt such a responsibility, because 404 people backed our Kickstarter campaign. That's a lot of people. I felt such a responsibility to them, even though I didn't know most of them. So sometimes that would pull me through. In pre-production or production, we were having a tough moment. It felt like we were standing on the shoulders in a beautiful way of 404 people who said, we believe in you, here's $10, here's $20. So that would often get me through. And then also having a really supportive partner. I can't ignore that Ryan, who you saw in the film, we're still together now. We have 2 kids. We've been together since we were teenagers. He's like my rock in my life, and I'm certain that I wouldn't be able to do all that I do without him. So I think finding someone, whether it's a best friend, a partner, a spouse, whatever that looks like for you, that is your biggest fan, even on the days when you're not your biggest fan, I think is really important. To be able to turn to someone, anyone, a parent, a relative, who says, you know, continue on the path, keep going, you got this, like, it's okay, sleep on it, you know, take a bath, take a walk, whatever that looks like for you. What's your reset, you know? I never want to make it sound like I am like a super motivated Energizer Bunny every day and all I do is make movies. Like, definitely not. I have so many days where I need to take long walks, or I'm feeling so lost, or I'm on Instagram and feeling bad about myself that other people are advancing in a way that I'm not. We all do it. So yes, I'm very determined. Yes, I work really hard, but I have plenty of days, even now, especially now, where I feel really lost and just kind of like, well, what do I do next? Or did any of that mean anything to anyone? Was that just a drop in the bucket? We all have those days. So figure out what that looks like for you. Is it a person? Is it an activity like taking a walk that helps you clear your mind? Is it thinking about all the people that have supported you to get to that moment and doing it for them? I think everyone needs an outlet of some kind, you know, to push on, because we all have those moments all the time.
When I feel despair, that was your question, right? Like, what do you, okay. Because I feel it now on occasion, just deep despair. I think I go all the way in. So I'm a feeler, and I just go ahead and I feel the despair. And if that means crying really hard or moaning or rocking, you know, I just have to physically experience the despair, and then it seems to dissipate. It doesn't have as much power when I feel it all the way. I also do know that now that I'm older, that I don't suffer from clinical depression. So I know that someone who may be suffering from depression may feel despair in a way that I don't. But I know that it's going to pass. It has passed every time that I've ever felt it. So I just have to have faith that if I can just get through the despair, there is something on the other side. And I've also learned that when I'm in despair, oh my gosh, y'all, it's called the dark night of the soul. I have this firm belief that there's some sort of breakthrough that's about to happen for me. So that's always happened also. When I get really low, there's always a breakthrough on the other side. And I have faith in that.
That's beautiful. Any more questions? Don't be scared.
Okay, so mine is a thank you for making Girls One, because that's where I started, and I'm 3 years now.
That's awesome.
That's all I got.
Can I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah.
When you say you started, where you started, tell me what you mean by that.
So I started in elementary school, of course, and now I am on the track and field team here, and then it's my 3rd year. So yeah.
That's beautiful.
Awesome.
Round of applause.
Awesome.
How many girls have you served now? And it's international, right?
Yeah, there's about 2.5 million.
2.5 million. So in the film we said 750,000. It's now 2.5 million girls.
Yeah.
I'll be your hype woman. Wow, that's amazing.
Sound the alarm.
International.
That is beautiful.
Wow.
Any more questions?
I really like how I heard both of you say, I just had a feeling this was right. Because that's another one of those things that I think women struggle with is this being logical? Is this rational? And to be able to open it up so that you recognize that there is kind of a muse in all of those, in the logical part, but also in that deep gut, this just feels right. And instead of pushing that away to actually pull it in and say, I'm gonna go with this one. I mean, I think that is fantastic, and I appreciate how you broaden out the creative process and all of the even like business aspects of it, using that to guide you. Thank you.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Sarah?
Yes, first of all, I just want to say I so appreciate your vulnerability. I think it's really important for all of us to hear the high and the low. And I question I had for Molly was, Molly, why do you think that Girls on the Run became successful? What did you think was the secret that you were able to, or this thing grew when so many others maybe don't?
I do believe we started before social media was available, so there wasn't as much noise for us to have to break through. So we grew by word of mouth, which is one of the best marketing strategies ever. So one girl told another one, and we became very cool. It's like spread like that. But the other thing that I really, really believe, back to that, creating that space, that safe space and brave space. So the space has got to be brave, where a kid feels willing to go outside her comfort zone. It's not just about being safe. And I think once a person has experienced that, I know that, I experienced it with you, which means forever and ever I'm going to feel safe with you, right? Once you've experienced that with someone, that person is your go-to. And that's what happened at the program. These girls came, and then they wanted to do it again. It was like, y'all want to do it for 3 years in a row? Are you kidding me? And they did. So I think and so the people that came felt the same way. I feel that with you. Sarah and I are good friends. So.
Anyone else?
On this trip, what was your favorite meal?
Meal? Oh.
Okay. So we ate very well. I would like you to know that. First of all, we had Buca di Beppo as like a sponsor. So Buca di Beppo, in any city where there was a Buca di Beppo, we came in and we just like maxed on pasta and like took so much home. But I'd say the best meal was in Denver with the chef, Chef Mary Nguyen. She was doing like a tasting for her new restaurant, Olive and Finch, that you saw she was building. So we got to come in and like try all the things in her backyard with her friends and family and like rate everything. And it was, you saw that like cow tongue that she was unfolding in the kitchen. That was cow tongue. I tried that and I was like, I feel like I'm French kissing a cow. But we ate like queens that night, and that was definitely the best meal. So good question. But I will say we were hustlers. Like, we had such a low budget. We didn't have a lot of money. Dana and I were like the owners, the purveyors of the project, so we didn't pay ourselves, but we paid the 3 women that we hired on the crew. But we spent so little on housing. We never slept in the minivan, to be very clear, but we spent like $254 total for the entire month on the road, 5 women, never sleeping in the van. So like we would reach out to Airbnb hosts, and this is 10 years ago, so it wasn't as popular, and we'd be like, hey, we're 5 women making this movie. If you're not renting out your Airbnb, like, can we stay there? And 8 times out of 10, people would say yes. So you have to ask. It was also like a beautiful reminder of like the kindness of strangers, and us just saying, this is what we're doing. Do you want to get involved? We'll put you in the credits. We'll thank you on social media. And people said yes. So we spent very little on housing, because my whole philosophy was like, we have so little budget. I want all of the budget to go on screen. I want to have great cameras, great lenses. I want to pay the people that are working for us. I need to hire this editor, like, as the movie was being made. So we were total hustlers, using very little budget to pay for an entire feature documentary.
On the topic of women being objectified and belittled throughout your careers, how do you handle like the anger of it all and not letting it consume you, knowing that change is so hard to make?
Such a good question. I think I've kind of come to peace with it, like I was saying, like existing in this very male-dominated space is the thing. Like just showing up and being on set and being a woman, being a mother. Now I have a new intersection of discrimination. I have motherhood as well. Is the way that I'm helping change people's hearts and minds. Not just the making of the films, but just merely existing in that space. So whenever I'm on set, I wear a hat that says director when I'm the director. And it's not for my ego. It's not because I need everyone to know that I'm the director. It's about representation. It's about that other women on the set or other women on social media will see that I am a woman, a mother, taking up space as a director in an extremely male-dominated field. I've come to notice that and not to generalize all women, but like I find that women tend to be more emotionally intelligent, perhaps. I find that my compassion, my empathy, my emotional intelligence is my superpower. And I want to celebrate that. And it doesn't mean to put anyone else down, but it means that when I'm the director on set, I'm going to get different performances out of actors, perhaps. I'm going to connect with people when I'm interviewing them, like I did with Molly. Like, that's my superpower, is being able to connect with humans on a different level. I find sometimes when I'm around a bunch of men on set, and I'm the only woman or one of very few women, it's like this posturing goes on. Like, I have to prove myself and my technical knowledge. That's like a very common occurrence on set, is like I'm being tested. Like, a guy on set will suddenly say something about the camera, and if I don't know what I'm talking about, which I do, that's gonna make it seem like no woman ever knows anything about camera gear, as if that's the only qualification to be a good director, which it's not. So I find there's a lot of ego and like posturing that goes on around a lot of men, and I try to just power through that and embrace my superpower as, an emotionally intelligent, empathetic person. But I've experienced all of it. Sexual harassment, I mean, are you kidding me? Working in television for 5 years, all the time. It's awful. It has made me feel so small, so insignificant, invisible, like my only value is my appearance. I've felt all of those things, and I think just with time and age and experience, you also get to create the environment that you want to work in at a certain level when you're the leader, or if I'm funding a project myself, like I just was on set a month ago. I'm making a short narrative film about motherhood. Guess what? I hired all women. It doesn't mean I don't want to work with men. It's not a discriminatory practice against men, but I want to give opportunities to women and to mothers who don't otherwise get them. So also the higher ranks you get in leadership, in whatever field, you get to bring people in that you want to work with. So that's been exciting too, as I've gotten older and more experiences. I'm just bringing people in who maybe don't have the perfect credits on their resume like others might require, but they've got the passion and the enthusiasm. So I'm trying to create the world in which I want to see in front of and behind the camera. So it's hard, but it's worth it.
I do feel rage, lots of rage. I'm really angry about the objectification of women, and I'm angry about social media and the way young girls are dying as a result of not feeling like they measure up. I mean, it's a thing. And so I have a close group of friends that I rage with, because if I don't get that rage out, I'm going to become bitter, I'm going to become less useful in the world. So I occasionally just go on a rage, and just have to get it out. I am now moving into a stage as a woman where I'm experiencing ageism in a big way. Yeah, I'm getting older, and I'm trying to sort of normalize aging. It's like we want to somehow pretend that people don't get old, and I'd rather get old than not. Mm-hmm. So I have found at times that I've been turning that rage on myself. Like I don't look like I used to be, or I'm not as interested in being as involved in things as I used to be. And I realize that that's me taking the external ageism and internalizing that oppression. And that's not helpful to myself or anyone else. So, I sort of applaud your rage, because my generation, we weren't allowed to feel that. We had to just kind of smile and say everything was okay. I just don't want it to eat me up,
Anyone else? That was a good question.
I have one last question.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there are men in the room as well, and so I'm just curious what your advice is to the men in the room. What would you like them to take away from this conversation?
Yeah, I would be interested to hear from any man in the room what they're taking away from it, but I hope that by hearing these stories of inspiring women, we will all look around us and think that there are empowered, extraordinary, inspiring women everywhere, and that they're clearly not getting the same opportunities in our workplaces. Even though this film was filmed quite a bit ago, it's still very relevant what's happening. So as you, the men in the room, rise in the ranks in your respective fields, whatever they are. Being aware of that, I think, is a huge part of allyship and advocacy. You know, women often take themselves out of promotions or out of the workforce completely as they're starting to think about being a mother, having children. There's so many things that make women feel less than in life, especially right now politically. I mean, the list goes on and on. The lack of federal maternity care, I mean, equal pay, you name it. We're going through it. So don't wait to like be a father to a daughter to join this fight. You know, like we need you. We need your allyship. We need your advocacy. We need you to listen. We need you to hear us. So awareness is certainly the first step. And if you're a heterosexual male, like you're going to be an amazing partner to your spouse if you're aware of these issues and you're helping to fight this fight with us. And that means, you know, promoting women, giving them raises, empowering them, mentoring them, opening the door for them, not in the literal sense, but in the, you know, bigger sense in terms of their careers. We need that allyship, we need that advocacy in order to create a more equal world. So, and also just the role models that you saw tonight, I hope that they were empowering for you as well to see that there's so many women all around us that are breaking barriers and blazing trails and trying to create a more equal world, and we should be celebrating those stories.
I think I don't think I am going to say that the number of young men dying by suicide is on the rise. And what I would want to say to you right now is you are good enough. You are enough. And that all of the things that the world is telling you about being a man, being successful, having the money, whatever those messages are that say somehow for you to be enough, you have to live up to those expectations, that is not the truth. The truth is you are enough right now, and all of those other things are just things you will do in life. Because I am so frustrated with this culture that is so machismo, you know, and is trying so hard to suggest that if you are empathic, if you cry, if you show compassion, if you listen, that you are somehow not a man. That is not the truth. What that does is that makes you not human. So that would be my message to all of you, that we're all swimming in this culture that suggests however we are is not enough, and that is not the truth.
Anyone?
Just listen to her all day.
Exactly. Exactly. Anyone else?
I appreciate how transparent and genuine you all are. Would you have any words of empowerment to those in the room at this current moment, or even those who may see this video or this reference?
Well, I'll just reiterate what Catherine Darnstedt, the architect in the Empowerment Project, said, which is to be bold and naive. I think that's such a perfect combination of words for all of us, especially at this age. It's okay to not have all the answers. You're not supposed to have all the answers, but it's also okay to be bold and continue forward. I think that's such a powerful dichotomy of taking bold steps forward, and you don't know what you don't know, and thank goodness for that, because you're gonna learn as you go. And then you can be even bolder and even more naive the next time. So I just love that quote, and I think those are words to live by. So I would tell everyone in the audience to triumphantly be bold and naive.
And I would say that there's this, you know, Venn diagram, circles. There's this space in the middle that I absolutely love. And one of the Venn circles is absolute terror, and the other one is absolute joy. And then there's the spot in the middle. I would say seek that spot in the middle, because that is where you will grow and your impact will be amazing. So like I think about, for example, my just saying to you that I still am stuck sometimes in how I look. I'm afraid to say those things because I think that, oh my gosh, I should be further along, right? I should not be thinking about those things. But there's a part of me that feels like joy at being able to just express myself. But then there's the other part of me that's fearful. And I believe that it's in that spot where we grow and we make change. We give people permission to be both afraid and joyful. And that's how things move forward.
we're going to wrap up here, but we're happy to keep chatting out in the hallway. I have some books for sale. I wrote a book called Empowered Filmmaking, How to Make a Documentary on Your Own Terms. So if you're interested in more information on how to make a film, this takes you through the entire process of how to fundraise. There's like 60 pages in there about how to fundraise for any creative project, distribution, marketing, how to use the camera. So if you would like a copy or want to purchase one for someone you know, I'll be out in the hallway, and I would love to meet you. We could take selfies, whatever you like, whatever. Yes.
What was the fundraising process like, for, making the documentary? Like, how did that go about? Because, in the class earlier, you guys said something about, like, fundraising being the most difficult part. How do
Yeah, so if you're available tomorrow, I'm going to do a total deep dive on that at noon in, where's that one?
Laverne Banquet Hall, so right beside of the CAF.
Yeah. So I don't want to like breeze through that right now. It's quite a long story. But I'll be talking about crowdfunding and grant writing and investors and private donors, all the ways that I've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for 3 different projects tomorrow at noon. So I hope you can join us. Otherwise, it is in the book, and I know you bought a copy. So it's in there. 60 pages. I got you. You're well equipped.
And just to further along the conversation, again, to reiterate, at 12 to 1:30, we'll be in Laverne Banquet Hall. We'll talk about fundraising your creative project. And then later that evening, we'll do another screening, Losing Sight of Shore. It's another immersive dive, and I think that you guys would benefit from that, and that's from 6 to 8:30. And it is 2 credits. So we do invite you to come to those 2 events. If you guys leave here and you're like, man, I just forgot where she said the event was going to be, follow Lyceum on Instagram, and we will post the event location, time, and everything that you need to know. Before all of you guys dismiss and go out and we do the book signing and we talk in depth, I think that you guys spoke volume to me. And for me, authenticity is a big thing for me. And it's hard to walk in spaces where in your mind, subconsciously, you're telling yourself, I'm not enough. And you're still actively doing, but you're like, I'm not enough. Actively doing, I'm not enough. And there's plenty of people that say, you're amazing, your spirit is great, but you're still saying, I'm not enough. I want students to leave here, or to leave this institution after 4 years and know that I am enough. And imperfection is beautiful, and it's okay. And to have you both on stage being authentic and being vulnerable, those are key things that are takeaways that most of us don't really get because we only see the surface. We never dive deeper. So I extend my greatest gratitude to both of you, and thank you so much. And again, I point back to Sarah Cologne.
Thank you, Sarah. Sarah will be there tomorrow night.
Exactly. The connection that was made is monumental to me because it didn't have to be what it was. But you looked at me and you saw something. And you allowed me to take those steps forward, even in the midst of me being apprehensive to take those steps. And to be new 2 months in and to see that speaks volume to me. And I can understand why you trust, right? And so when you leave here today, think of whenever you rise or whenever you're accomplishing, lend a hand to the next person because they may not have that same opportunity. And so without that, we end here and we'll meet and congregate in the lobby. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.